Now the latest around the wide world of tropics. Tropical Weather Bulletin for October 10th. Well, here we are, another day in the wide world of tropics, this time with two tropical storms in the western Pacific, one a newly joined Lionrock and Thun, of course the latter being the new one, as it is in the eastern part of the western Pacific. 79 storms have formed so far this worldwide season as we enter day 283 of the year. In the Atlantic side of things, it's day 132 of the season, now with Invest 92L, that has a 50% chance of forming into a short-lived subtropical storm off the North Carolina coast there. Those chances will decrease if it doesn't form by tomorrow night. In the Eastern Pacific, we have Invest 91E that has a 90% chance of formation on this 148th day of season here. Of course, this could become a hurricane, and it is definitely something to watch if you are in Mexico. We'll see what happens with possible impacts there. In the Western Pacific, there is Lionrock and Thun there. Kompasu has a 100% chance of formation, and it is likely that Thun remains at the sea. Kompasu will eventually become a typhoon, and Lionrock should be making landfall in Vietnam soon. In the North Indian Ocean, there are no systems active, and there are nothing expected the next 5 days. Of course, we did have Kulab Shaheen a few days ago, but that has been long gone for a while now, and thankfully, we are not looking at anything to come for some time here. That brings us over to the track forecast. This is for Kompasu, which is a 65-mile-an-hour monsoonal depression by our analysis here. So not something that you see very often, obviously, but it is expected to become a tropical storm very soon, and it will pass to the north of the Philippines, probably impacting the Luzon Strait, where we could see this become a typhoon, and eventually it should go into the South China Sea, where possible impact could be seen from the Hainan Peninsula. Too early to say where this will go, but it is likely that the Hainan Peninsula will be impacted somehow. The Atlantic satellite imagery looks like this. A pretty large extratropical low to the east of Newfoundland, and then of course you can see 92L near the Carolina coast. Its cloud influence expanding pretty far actually. In the Eastern Pacific, you can see 91E to the right of your screen there is getting itself more organized. It is likely that it becomes a tropical cyclone in the next 24 to 48 hours here. Other than that, nothing really much going on, and it's probably going to be staying that way now that we are pretty much wrapping up on the time that we usually see these tropical storms forming in the Eastern Pacific. In the Western Pacific, here's what we're going on, or here is what is going on here over here. Lionrock to the left of your screen, and then of course you can see Kompasu and Thun that is getting itself organized as well. So a bit of a party going on. We typically see these late storms in the Western Pacific anyway, so it's definitely something that is normal and always see here. Of course, we hopefully shouldn't be seeing anything like Goni last year, hopefully. In the North Indian Ocean, you can see what's going on here. A little spin up low that tried to get itself together there in the Arabian Sea, but of course that failed. And other than that, Bay of Bengal is looking a little bit drier. Here we are in the floater imagery for the two systems that we are monitoring for development, of course, Kompasu and Thun. Thun just named soon after I recorded the first take of this, but of course I had to retake this. And then of course you can see Kompasu, which is definitely something that we haven't really seen in a while in terms of the way it developed. In the Eastern Pacific, you can see what's going on here in terms of the sea surface temperatures, around 29 to 30 degrees Celsius in the eastern side of things. Those temperatures drop off as you head westward to the Central Pacific. It's 28 to 29 degrees Celsius in the southern Gulf of Mexico, Caribbean, Western Atlantic, and southern main development region. Those temperatures decrease as you head northwards, and of course there is still a portion of the Atlantic that is still healing from the upwelling seen by Hurricane Sam, which extratropical remnants still can be traced today. In the North Indian Ocean, you can see what's going on here with the sea surface temperatures as well. 29 to 30 degrees Celsius across the northern part of the Bay of Bengal, I should say. 28 to 29 for the rest of the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea. In the Western Pacific, it's around 29 to 30 degrees Celsius throughout the majority of the basin, although of course where Mindul tracked over, it's slightly cooler from Taiwan latitude northward, so that we will probably see that heal up in the next week or so here. Moving on over to the sea surface temperature anomalies, the Atlantic is looking warmer than normal, of course, with the exception of where Sam was. The Eastern Pacific is above average still. Central Pacific is cooler than average. Western Pacific is looking above average slightly, with the exception being where Mindole tracked over, and the North Indian Ocean is looking above average as well. And we can really see that La Nina is starting to get itself much more pronounced there. On this day in 2018, we had Hurricane Michael, a Category 5, making landfall at that intensity in Florida. We also had Tropical Storm Nadine and Tropical Storm Sergio. Of course, Michael will be remembered as one of the very few hurricanes to make landfall at Category 5 intensity. That name will later be retired. Of course, you can find more of our imagery and information on these on this day's storms on our Twitter handle at Cyclone History. Of course, this image was proudly edited by our very own Isaac. Also active on this day was Tropical Storms Nadine and Sergio. Well, that brings us over to the next names in the Atlantic. The next two names here are Wanda followed by Adria. In the Eastern Pacific, the next two names here are Pamela and Rick. We're probably about to get Pamela. And in the Central Pacific, while spooky scary skeletons send shivers down your spine, seeing Hone would shock our souls. Moving on over to the Western Pacific, the next names now are Malo followed by Nieto. In the North Indian Ocean, the next two names here are Jawad followed by Asani. Going on over to the Southern Hemisphere, the next two names here are Anna followed by Betsy right in this region. In the Australian region, we're looking out for Patty and Ruby, and in the South Pacific, we're looking out for Cody. Darian is replacing Dominic in the Australian region side of things, and that is the change that we have seen for this. Another tropical weather bulletin will be coming out tomorrow night.